Hello, everybody. This is Carl. Welcome to Carl's Opinions. It's our Saturday Night Live call-in show. We won't be taking any calls for a little bit here. We're covering some of the stories. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the whistleblower's complaint and why the whistleblower does not actually fit into the statute, something the whistleblower and his attorneys knew way ahead of time. But this was just some kind of a big conspiracy. This guy's been in the White House probably since at least December, since Sessions quit and they put Barr in charge, and the agency and the intel guys realized, heck, the gig is up, and Barr's in there. He's kind of a big blubbering kind of dude, but he just kind of just keeps blubbering along, if you will, and kind of get stuff done in the process. And he figured he'd probably start looking into, hey, what the hell actually happened? What was going on back then? How did this thing get started? And that's the last thing anybody wanted to happen. So in order to thwart, any attempts by Barr to uncover what was going on, they figured, okay, Plan 2, or actually Part B of Plan 1, which is the whole plan to get rid of Donald Trump. This probably maybe Part C or D, I guess. So it's like, okay, we're going to put somebody in there. We're going to say, he's assigned to the NSA. He's going to be hanging around the White House, and he's going to spy. His job is to spy. His job was not to be a liaison with the CIA over to the NSA or to be assigned there. His job was to spy on the White House. I guarantee you he was a spy from a long time ago, knows tradecraft really well, knows how to work in office. The White House is one big office. Probably had dossiers on everybody in there, knew everything about them, their strengths, their weaknesses, their likes, their dislikes, their vulnerabilities, etc., you name it. My guess, coming into December would be a good time because half the staff is gone at different times for Christmas and stuff, and that's the time when you kind of sneak in, and then people see you there, and it's like, oh, you're here. Yeah, I've been here for a couple of weeks, and then somebody introduces you and say, oh yeah, this is John or Bill or whoever, and and basically what you're doing, you're working them. I mean, you're working these people. They don't know they're being worked. They just think you're just a colleague. You're from the agency. You're over there to, some bureaucrat. You probably come across that way. Probably married, has kids, non-threatening, or at least that's his cover. He's married with kids. Maybe he has no kids. Maybe he has no wife, whatever. But you want to be a non-threatening kind of person. If it's a woman, same kind of thing, maybe married. So men don't feel like, oh, no, she's going to hit on me. Or women don't feel insecure around her, not like real good looking or anything like that by far. You want somebody that feel kind of like a Katie Couric, kind of look. Women feel kind of comfortable around her. They don't feel threatened by her, that kind of thing. So my guess is probably a guy, though. And again, along the same lines, a non-threatening kind of guy, and, eventually just kind of works his way around the room, lets people know he's a shoulder to cry on, makes a lot of friends, everybody's talking to him, and they figure they can talk to him about anything because he's got high-level security clearance. He's not going to leak it, or he's not going to go public. They can talk to him about sensitive security issues because he's got the same clearance they have. So it's like, oh, yeah, you can talk to me. Yeah, and he can offer some opinions on the issue and what's going on. They knew they're going to be looking at Ukraine because they knew that's where all this started because they're the ones who started it. They're the ones who, DNC went over there, looking to get some dirt on Paul Manafort, get some dirt on Trump. They had ties to the Obama administration with Ukraine for the aid they were giving them against, versus Vladimir Putin. So, they can make some moves over there. Not to mention Joe Biden's kid was on one of the big companies over there, and of course, that played out when he goes over there and says, hey, I want you to get rid of this prosecutor. Nice story from John Solomon with The Hill. And this came out yesterday, and he was saying, pretty much, laying it out like Biden says, oh, the investigation was over. And, the funny thing about that is, and I pulled up the name of the attorney who was actually handling the case for Burisma, and he didn't settle that case till January of 2017, and they paid about $90 million in quote-unquote back taxes, and even the people in Ukraine were questioning, was it really back taxes or just some kind of like a payoff saying, okay, look, we're not going to prosecute anybody criminally, just, write us a big check. $90 million, that sounds about right. Not 90 million U.S., 180 million Ukrainian dollars, whatever that is. So, and even the press over there, when they questioned the reporter, and I'll bring him up in a little bit here, was like, are you sure that just wasn't a payoff? Did they really owe back taxes? Oh, yeah, no, it was a separate issue, and, we were just working the criminal side. And then, in fact, the day after this prosecutor got fired, the story goes on to say, that the American legal team, including this one attorney from the United States who had used to be with the Department of Justice himself, they went over there, they quick met with the new prosecutor, the temporary one, and said, hey, look, we just want to apologize for that narrative that was put out there, bad-mouthing the last guy, saying how he was corrupt and everything. That wasn't us. And if you want, we'll arrange for you to go to the State Department. We'll bring you in, and you can talk to people at the State Department. You can tell them the truth, and we'll back you up. We'll say, look, yeah, the last guy wasn't corrupt. It's not a corrupt office. We just want to get this case done. And they negotiated for several months on this matter, and they ended up taking and the criminal court. The criminal court didn't clear Burisma and the chairman, CEO, until September of 2016. Biden was over there in the spring of 2016, and that's when he was talking at the conference in 2017, bragging about it. So this thing was ongoing. It wasn't like when he got that guy fired, everybody wanted him fired. Our allies, they thought he was corrupt. No, that had nothing to do with it at all. The fact that this guy was, in fact, looking at Burisma Holdings. So, this guy, one thing about McGuire, when he testified, he said, hey, this guy was acting in good faith. No, I disagree. He was not acting in good faith. Atkinson was not acting in good faith. When you look at the statute, and we'll go through it, this guy doesn't fit into it. He's talking about intelligence, basically intelligence personnel under the direction of the Director of National Intelligence. The president does not fall into that, does not fit into that category. And you see the way the Inspector General, the way he twists and contorts the law and brings this statute in over here and the 1947 Act over here and says, if you add all these together, you have authority over the president. And the DNI guy, McGuire, he's not even an attorney. He's like, wait, that doesn't sound right. No, I think you're wrong on that. He goes, oh, no, I've been a U.S. attorney and I know what I'm talking about. No, I think you're wrong. I think you're trying to torture the facts and the law to get a result you want. Namely, you want this guy to be considered a whistleblower, so then I have to send it over to Congress. Well, this has never. And you probably asked him, have you ever seen it where the executive privilege could be at issue? And he probably said, well, no, and that's never happened. Why? It's never happened because it doesn't apply to the president. So of course he has to go over to the White House Office of Legal Counsel and say, hey, I think I got some executive privilege in this stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, well, let's work through this. Meanwhile, he also goes over to the Department of Justice and says, hey, look, there might be some wrongdoing here. I'm going to refer this to you guys. Take a look at it for potential criminal investigation. And also, the Inspector General saying like this guy fits into the Intelligence Surveillance Whistleblower Act, Intelligence Whistleblower Act. And I don't think it does. And the Department of Justice looks at it, and they just read the statute. It's pretty clearly written. In fact, it was the most recent amendment to it actually specifically added only underneath the Director of National Intelligence. So, I mean, even the most recent thing was saying it was limiting it to just actions by people who work for the Director of National Intelligence, not anybody else. And it didn't include the president or even other departments or anything, just in the intelligence community itself. So DOJ looks at it and goes, yeah, this guy, it doesn't apply to this guy. You don't have to send it over to Congress, because if it did apply, he would have to immediately forward it on to Congress within 7 days. And meanwhile, he's still trying to work through the executive privilege thing. That's never come up before because, again, the president is not part of the statute. So, so Schiff gets word from the Inspector General, hey, I got this report. I sent it over to the Director of National Intelligence, but he says he needs to look through some things. Schiff, of course, already knows what's in it. Schiff already, I'm sure, knows what's in it. Probably helped write the damn thing. Definitely a whole group of really good attorneys put this thing together. And if you look at the report, we'll get to it. The report's dated August 12th, and the last entry he has in there is an event that occurred, I believe, on August 9th. Well, when you read this report, and I've had to write briefs myself numerous times, this is not the kind of thing you just do like overnight. I mean, especially referencing all the dates and the facts, the different conversations you had. He would have had to go through his notes to make sure he was right, make sure he wasn't misquoting anybody. He had to pull up newspaper articles going back to March of 2016. And even before that, I mean, this thing was an ongoing enterprise. He was there for one reason: to spy on Trump, to see if he could find him doing something bad, to try to get the heat off Joe Biden. It really is. It's debate gate part 2. That was what happened to Jimmy Carter from 1980. But it's really the Russian investigation, part C, D, or E, because what you had there was you had the intelligence community trying to protect Hillary Clinton while at the same time then hoping to distract everybody by going after President. And it was almost successful. It almost worked, and this little thing here would have worked a little bit smoother for them. But one thing they didn't count on was Trump was growing leery of Dan Coats, Director of National Intelligence, because he gave Barr permission to declassify any document he wanted, and every agency had to cooperate. Well, Dan Coats was not cooperating with Bill Barr. He was not sending them the memos and the things John Durham were asking for on how this whole Russia collusion BS started. He wasn't getting it to him. Why? Because he was covering for his own guys. So Trump got tired of it and said, "Okay, you're gone." Well, they weren't planning on Dan Coats being gone because they knew Dan Coats would have gone along with it. Dan Coats hates Trump and an establishment, guy himself. So anyway, here comes this guy McGuire. And he's not part of the operation. He's not in on it. And he looks at it and he goes, "No, you don't fit into the statute." And it's almost like, are you people crazy or something? How can you torture these facts to get it to fit into this whistleblower statute where I have to send it to Congress in a week? He goes, "No, no." And then again, when he went to the Justice Department, they said, "No, this doesn't apply." But anyway, so let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the statute real quick here. So let's get over here. Let's see. All right. Okay. So let's get back to this. So let's find the actual last part of the language here. Actually, let's take a look real quick. I'm going to pull something else up here first, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. All right, this is, and let me pull myself out of here. You're not going to be able to see me, but I think it's more important to see these words than see me, of course. And this is the first sentence this is the letter. This is dated August 12th, 2019. And this is written by the whistleblower. And the first sentence, he references the statute, whistleblower statute. 303, 50 U.S.C. United States Code, 50 United States Code, Section 3033, and then he references Section K, Subsection 5, Subsection A, and he goes, "I am reporting an urgent concern." Now, you notice he puts urgent concern in quotes because it's a legal phrase. It's not like urgent concern, like it's urgent. We have to get you to the hospital because you're about to have a baby. No, it's a legal phrase. Urgent concern is defined within the statute. And so in accordance with the procedures outlined in 50 U.S.C. 3033, subsection K, subsection 5, subsection A, this letter is unclassified when separated from the attachment. So he knows the statute. Well, his lawyers know the statute. And the guys he's had working with him probably the cover would be, "Oh, I went to these guys because I thought I might run into a jam and I wanted some good whistleblower attorneys on my side." But, you generally can't get that information. You can generally find out. You're allowed to ask, when were you hired? That you are allowed to ask. But nobody's going to be asking these questions. This is not going to be any kind of investigation, unless Barr does something. But, attorney-client privilege, that's pretty hard to crack through. But anyway, so he references the statute 3033 K5A, and that's important. I'll tell you why, because let me show you something over here. Okay, so remember that 3033 K5A, the letter A. Okay. So let's take a look over here. And I want to say this is it. Right. Now, you'll see here what I have up on the screen, and it says the most recent law providing a definition of urgent concern. Again, urgent concern is a legal phrase. Section 3033 of 50 U.S.C. Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. However, it differs by making specific reference to the DNI's authority. Right. In other words, the most recent update, if you will, of that statute, the most recent law, which defines urgent concern, specifically talks as this language. And this is from Section 3033K5G. Now, the whistleblower was referencing Section 3033K5A. So I guess he didn't read down, 5 or 6 paragraphs. But anyway, this is important because this is what urgent concern is. A serious or flagrant problem, abuse, violation of law, or executive order, or deficiency relating to the funding, administration, or operation of an intelligence activity, and then you see the italicized part, within the responsibility and authority of the Director of National Intelligence involving classified information, but does not include differences of opinions concerning public policy matters. So within the responsibility and authority of the Director of National Intelligence. Now, the President of the United States is not within the responsibility and authority of the Director of National Intelligence. The chain of command is the President is the Commander-in-Chief. Everybody else works for him, including this guy, the DNI. So when he got this whistleblower thing, and he saw it was about the President, and a conversation the President was having, and what the President was doing, it's like, wait, you look at the plain language of the statute, and that's important when you do, we're trying to figure out what the intent of the legislature was. If the language is plain, you don't really have to go back behind and say, okay, what do they mean? Because this is pretty clear. This is pretty clear. And when you read the Inspector General's report, his name, Atkinson, who formerly a Bush appointee, Trump appointed him to this position, but he pretty much was stuck appointing Bush people like Barr because the only ones who would get through the Senate. So he appoints this guy, and when you read his letter and you compare it to the whistleblower's letter, and I won't put his letter to the Director of National Intelligence, because that really gets in the weeds. I mean, that's really in the weeds. But it's almost like it was like a cut and paste job off the whistleblower's complaint. It was like he was just agreeing with them. It was like, yeah, he's right. Of course the president. Well, no, it doesn't. But you just see the way it was almost like reading the Roe versus Wade decision. You know how they try to torture the law and try to say, you add this together and this together, you bring this in, you look at this and this subparagraph, and you combine it with this paragraph, then it's within your responsibility and authority of what the president does. Again, the plain reading of the statute, that's not it. And so when the Department of Justice looked at it, they're like, no, it doesn't. That was the ethics division of the Department of Justice. That's non-political, that's not partisan. That's career guys. That's who it is. There's no political appointees in the ethics division. So anyway, let's go back and take a look at this guy's letter. And you see, he doesn't fit in. So he's not acting in good faith. He just wants this in the public domain. Again, he was sent in to spy, probably again sometime around Christmas, if not earlier. It could have been as early as July, because you'll see from the reporting, the stories I'm about to cover in here. July is when the Ukrainians start, asking the Department of Justice for help. July of 2018, they start asking the Justice Department for help and trying to uncover all this nonsense with Biden and the DNC coming over to try to get dirt on Manafort and everything else during the election. So they're trying to get help from the Department of Justice. They're not getting any help. I think they went to the Southern District of New York. That should sound familiar to everybody. Couldn't get any help there. And they're the ones who actually reached out to Giuliani. They said, well, look, we need some help here. We can't, the prosecutor's like, I just can't call up the President of the United States. But, hey, his friend, Rudy Giuliani, he's always running around doing stuff. And he's his personal attorney. Why don't we contact him, attorney to attorney, and say, hey, we need some help. Maybe you can help us, try to get some stuff done, because we can't get anything from the Department of Justice. And remember, July of 2018, the Department of Justice, the last thing they wanted to do was start uncovering how the origins of their own investigation began, because July of 2018 is when Mueller released the indictment, indicting 30 Russians for interfering with the United States election. And at that point in time, Mueller knew that no Americans were involved with it. He didn't charge any Americans as co-conspirators, not Trump, not Trump's campaign people, not anybody. Not one American was ever indicted, period. So they already knew things were falling apart, and the last thing they wanted to do was to help out to try to figure out how this whole thing started. And the only reason why Mueller didn't come public in July of 2018, because remember the midterms right around the corner in November 2018, and by holding on to it, it was going to put that cloud over the Republican Party, the cloud over Trump, and they were hoping then the Democrats could retake the House, and if not the Senate also, and then do this kind of circus we got going on right now with all the hearings and everything else. So the last thing again, the Department of Justice back in July of 2018 wanted to do was help out, anybody, the Ukrainians, saying, hey, can you help us out with these Americans who were over here trying to, get information from us and everything else during the 2016 election when they were trying to, sabotage the Trump campaign. So, all right, so let's take a look at the actual whistleblower stuff. So we'll go back to that right now. And let me get him up here. All right, so he writes this. So he says, in the course of my official duties and from I received information from. Now that first line right there, that's a complete lie. Okay, he sent over to spy, tradecraft, spycraft, what do you want to call it, craft. He's over there getting information. He's getting in close with people. He's getting to know their names. He's getting friendly with them. Maybe hang out with them after work. He's working these people. These people don't know they're being worked, but he's working them. Getting to be the kind of guy, somebody you can be the shoulder to cry on, that kind of guy. So he didn't receive information. He was asking, but asking in a way that nobody felt like, hey, this guy is snooping around. I mean, this guy's a professional. My guess is he's been a spy, probably overseas for probably 20 years. So he knows how to work a room, knows how to work an office, knows how to work people. So he didn't receive anything. He was going and getting this information from these people. So using, and again, when you read this, this is not a report providing information. This is not an informative type of report. This is an argument. This is an argumentative report. It's about argument. It's about persuasive writing. He's trying to persuade the reader to come to his point of view, to wit that he's trying to convince the reader that the president has broken the law, that everybody associated with the president is bad, is corrupt, is evil, and everybody on the other side is nice and noble and acting in the best light. And so he goes on. Now, this is important, too, because he goes on to say, hold on, over the past 4 months, more than half a dozen U.S. officials have informed me of various facts related to this effort. I mean, he's really working that room. He's got like more than half a dozen U.S. officials. He's talking to a lot of people. This guy was just liaison over working at the NSA. And suddenly now, and he makes an excuse later on. He says, well, this is what we normally do in interagency. We talk to one another to share ideas, and that way we can make better policy decisions and stuff like that. Well, that's nonsense. That's not true. So anyway, I mean, that's not what he was there for. Again, he was there to spy. He was sent in to spy, and that's what he's doing. And he says, here he goes. The information provided herein was relayed to me in the course of official interagency business. It is routine for U.S. officials with responsibility for a particular regional or functional portfolio to share such information with one another in order to form policymaking and analysis. And supposedly he claims he's supposed to be some kind of expert on the Ukraine, in fact, and that's why he was sent in. But he obviously must have, I guess, not read all the communiques about what was going on in the Ukraine, because he actually just blatantly just tells a bunch of things that aren't true. And he makes a lot of judgments in here. He gives a lot of opinions. Again, this is not like a whistleblower. It's like, hey, this is what happened. I don't know if it's against the law. You guys figure it out. But this is what I've seen. This is what I've heard. And this is what I know. No, this is a persuasive this is a document used to try to persuade the reader. He's trying and he's appealing to his audience. The audience he knows is going to be, he doesn't care about the Senate Intelligence Committee. He knows it's going to be Adam Schiff. Okay, and Adam Schiff's going to eat this stuff up, and he doesn't want to take a chance on just laying out information, because Schiff may be kind of stupid and may not get it. So this guy's going to put it all together for him and give his hypothesis of what's going on, his opinion of all this, and that's not really a whistleblower. That's a guy trying to persuade somebody, hey, this guy is bad, these people are good, and you got to go after the bad guy. So anyway, he goes on to say he's fulfilling his duty to report this information through proper legal challenge to the relevant authorities. Well, no, it's not. No, he wasn't. All right, so let's go to the next page here. Boom. All right. Bring this back up. All right, so to the best of my knowledge, the entirety of this statement is unclassified. Okay, so anyway, the July 25th presidential phone call. So he doesn't know which side initiated the phone call. You see that there. I do not know which side initiated the call. And he said the only time the president talked to him before was on the 21st. And according to the White House officials who had direct knowledge of the call, the president pressured Mr. Zelensky to inter alia, initiate or continue an investigation to the activities of former Vice President Joseph Biden and his son Hunter Biden to assist in reportedly uncovering that allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election originated in the Ukraine Let's see what else. Ukrainian leader and with a specific request that the Ukrainian leader locate and then turn over servers by the Democratic National Committee and examined by the U.S. cybersecurity CrowdStrike. And it's funny because he makes a statement here where he in the footnote down below, and it's kind of hard to see, but he says it is unclear. He says, he goes, I do not know why the president associates these servers with Ukraine. And he talks about different comments he made on the news. Again, he's editorializing in here. He's giving his opinion. He's trying to persuade. He's trying to like make the president sound stupid now. It's like this guy's like an idiot. That's again. This is not really a whistleblower. This guy is he is a political hack. Okay, he is partisan. He's trying to persuade the listener that the president is dumb. The president doesn't know what he's doing. The president's an evil person. He's doing bad things. Let's see. And then, of course, he names here Attorney General Barr, because President mentioned, yeah, I want the Attorney General to talk to you. So what he's doing here now is what they did with Sessions, with the Russia thing. See, McCabe, told Sessions, hey, look, I'm going to prosecute you because you met with this one Russian guy who didn't disclose it. You better recuse yourself. And then, of course, he does. And then, of course, then Comey comes in with these documents. And then next, Rosenstein's off. And then here comes, the special counsel. That's what this setup is for. I mean, this is just, we see the good thing about this document is like we're seeing how the mindset worked to get the special counsel appointed to go after Trump on the Russia collusion story. This is how it started. It's just this right here. This is the same way it started with the Russia collusion thing. We just happen to see it in writing. So in a way, this sucks, but in a way, this is good because we're seeing their mindset. We're seeing how their brains are working. We're seeing how they put all these different little pieces together in a puzzle. It's like, okay, we're gonna get the Attorney General to recuse himself. Then we're gonna say the Deputy Attorney General has to go, and then we're gonna bring in the President and his personal attorney. So then his attorney couldn't even represent him, if you will. He'd have to get somebody else. And who else was involved? And he goes through a whole litany of people that are potentially involved in this. So all these people have to be recused. And then, of course, here comes the special counsel. And, of course, you just need to drag it out for at least a year because, the last one took over 2 years with the special counsel. You just need a year to get past the November elections, a year and 2 months from now, a year and a month from now. So you can see this is how all this started way back. They put the spies in place with the Russia collusion story that was Mitford and Halper and Downer, Australian intelligence, British intelligence, Italian intelligence. Here they're just using straight CIA agents. They get them embedded in the White House. Probably nobody noticed them. Nobody, said, oh, just another guy from the agency with the NSA. Real harmless. Nothing to see here. I'm just a guy. I'm just a bureaucrat. Probably shows up with a bag lunch. Oh, my wife made this for me. Probably, like I said, probably didn't even have a wife. Just a phony cover story. That kind of bullshit. And just again, work in the room. Even the way he dressed, the way he talked, the way he did his hair, all that stuff. All that. I guarantee you this guy is a spy going way back, probably 20 years at least. And what they're trying to do is get Barr to recuse himself. Now, Barr, for his part, never called the Ukrainians, never talked to the Ukrainians. Trump never said, hey, call the Ukrainians. Probably if he did, he probably said, I'm busy. I'm doing something else. I got other things to do. Anyway, so he didn't call. There's a story saying Barr was kind of ticked off that he mentioned his name in the phone call. Like, what are you getting me dragged into this mess for? Well, fortunately for Barr, he's kind of like, again, he's kind of a big, obnoxious kind of dude. Trump said, even if Trump said, hey, call this guy, he's like, whatever. Okay, I'm busy. So he didn't. So he says, I don't have to recuse myself, and I'm not going to. Have a nice day. And it's up to Barr to make that call. Barr doesn't have to. Okay, nobody can force Barr to recuse himself. I mean, you can go to try to impeach Barr, and good luck, you have to go through the Senate to do that. And the president's not going to fire him anytime soon because then he has to put somebody else in place, and then he has to get that guy through a confirmation hearing, which, of course, the president's not going to want to do. But let's see here. Let's see. So, and he also talks about, in addition to my personal observations, there's discretion with respect to the classification of private comments. He's very clear on how things should not be, classified or unclassified. So let's go and get to the next page here. All right. Bring this back up. All right. and he talks about how the president praised Prosecutor General Mr. Lutsenko and suggested that Mr. Zelensky might want to keep him in the position. And then starting in March of 2019, Mr. Lutsenko made a series of public allegations, many of which he later walked back. Actually not true. It's actually a false statement right there. Lutsenko did not walk a lot of allegations back. He kind of calmed down a little bit on what he said, but he didn't walk them back. And you see from reporting most recently, he did not walk them back. Let's see. And about the Biden's family activities in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials purported involvement in the 2016 U.S. election, the activity of the U.S. Embassy in Kiev. Now, it's funny, he says purported involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections. You know, well, if he's an expert on the Ukraine, he works at the CIA, he knows the DNC had people over in Ukraine trying to pull up dirt on Paul Manafort. Now, he doesn't mention that in here. He easily could have, but he doesn't. He kind of leaves that part out. Let's see. And Donald Trump expressed his conviction that the new Ukrainian government will be able to quickly improve Ukraine's image, blah, blah, blah. And he used all kinds of air quotes and stuff throughout this as well. And a mixture of policy officials, and he talks about all the different people that are listening in. And he was told that a State Department official, he names this one State Department official, also listened in for whatever reason. We'll probably know about why he named this guy later. And let's see. He talks about, and then what he does here too, he starts like connecting dots. He starts saying, okay, well they did this, and then they did this, and they did this, and that leads to the conclusion of this. Like he's coming up with conclusions. Again, he's a whistleblower. He's not supposed to come up with conclusions. That's up for the, Intelligence Committee of the House. That's up for the Department of Justice. They're the ones supposed to come up with conclusions. He's filling in conclusions for whoever's going to be reading this, which he knows is going to be Adam Schiff, and he's also writing this in such a way that for public consumption, and where he probably will get called to testify. He'll blow his cover, of course, but maybe not. And maybe the Democrats will just get all riled up and just go forward with impeachment proceedings. Who knows? So, basically what I wrote here when I was reading this is that he's trying to paint a narrative instead of relating facts. It's persuasive writing versus relating events. And like he even makes comments like, talking about how they were locking down, putting into a special classified place, the transcript of the transcript of the conversation. Well, they've done it before. He even admits that later, but he says, probably for some other nefarious reason. No, they do it because this place is like a sieve. It leaks like crazy. And also, by the way, for at least the last 9 months, there's been a spy running around the damn White House, working with the CIA, getting ready to turn information over to the public and to the, House Select Committee on Intelligence. So he says, this set of actions underscored to me that White House officials understood the gravity of what had transpired. Like, he's telling you how these people were feeling. He somehow knows how these people are feeling. He knows what's in their mind, what their intentions are, what their motivations are. He's making judgments on people's motivations, people intent. Like, if we were in a criminal court and this guy was testifying, he goes, yeah, I believe their motivation, boom, object, you can't say it, you're not a psychiatrist, you're not competent, did you examine this person, did he tell you what his feelings were? No, you just, we're surmising. Well, that's speculation, objection, blah, 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 assumes fact not in evidence, you name it, it doesn't come in. But this document is not in a courtroom. This document is going in front of the public, in front of the Intelligence Committee, and being made hay of on mainstream media. So let's get to the next page. Let's see. All right, and then he talks about his ongoing concerns. In other words, so, let's see here. And, this kind of brings me back to, again, DebateGate back in 1980, and the person that Carter appointed to be CIA director was Stanfield Turner. And something was very telling about Stanfield Turner. Turner had worked in intelligence in the Navy and things of that sort, and I guess he knew pretty much about the reputation of the CIA. When he became director, and he knew he was going to have to get rid of a lot of bad apples over there, guys just like these idiots who, unfortunately, we still have, he knew better than to have his office at Langley, at CIA headquarters. Instead, he had his office in the executive office building. He did not want his office in Langley. He knew those guys would be going through that office, rummaging through the files, doing whatever it took, listening to the phone calls, listening to conversations, wiretapping the office. He'd have to have the place swept like every 10 minutes, and the people he hired would probably be working for them. He said, I ain't taking a chance. So it was really odd that the director of the CIA was not sitting at Langley. He was he was in his own building because he knew these guys. He knew what they were about, and and these guys are really good at this. And it's a real shame if they spend as much time, protecting, the country instead of protecting their own asses, which is what all this is about. They're trying to cover for people who may be like McCabe and those guys who are no longer there, guys who had to go get a GoFundMe page because they're anticipating being indicted. Not to mention this all pushes all that away because if they do indict anybody, oh, this is just retaliation for this Ukraine thing. These guys were right, you were wrong, that whole 10 yards. And then even Durham, looking at the Ukraine situation now and looking at the Biden family, this is just a bit put pushback on them to kind of paralyze them, freeze them, because if they do anything, it's like, oh, this is just because, you guys are all crooked with Trump, and, John Durham is a straight up guy, and so is Bill Barr. But it's just one big, you can see, again, the one thing about this is that we're, unlike 2016, the spring of 2016, March, when Mr. was meeting with Papadopoulos, we didn't see the inner workings of how all this gets put together, of how this whole big conspiracy gets put together. But you can see it now. You can see it like with the CIA working with members of Congress, working, infiltrating, like in this case, the White House, infiltrating the Trump campaign, getting close to people, finding out information, using that information, reporting it back. I mean, you're seeing this right here on paper. I mean, yeah, he had to give it away, but he did give it away. I mean, this is exactly what we saw if we would have been seeing it 3.5 years ago, the spring of 2016. This is what they were doing. This is what they were putting together. And so it's almost like weird because it's like, God, these people they're not very creative, like they're doing the same thing they did 3.5 years ago. I mean, this is almost like identical. And, you wonder who the spy is. But it's just another thing, by saying, oh, he's a whistleblower, that means he thinks he's immune from retaliation, like he can't be fired. Because, well, I'm a whistleblower. I'm in the statute. You can't fire me. That's a violation of the law. Well, I think they should fire him and let it go to court and let the court decide whether or not this guy fits into the whistleblower statute, whether or not Congress intended with the various statutes the Inspector General cited to include the President of the United States as under the authority of the Director of National Intelligence. I think constitutionally speaking, no. You cannot cede a constitutional authority to a bureaucrat. The president can't cede his authority to conduct foreign policy to a bureaucrat underneath them. Okay, he cannot cede his Article 2 powers to an unelected bureaucrat. You can't do it. So, the Inspector General's twisting of that statute and of several other statutes in conjunction with that one is dead out wrong on a just straight Article 2 constitutional basis. See, I mean, and again, he's seeking people out. He's talking to people. You see, like here, I also learned from multiple U.S. officials that about August 2nd. Again, he's right. He sent his letter off August 12th, and he's talking what's going on August 2nd. He goes on later to say August. He talks about August 9th. I mean, but he heard from multiple U.S. officials. I mean, is this guy just like the most popular guy in the room? Do people just walk up to him and say, "Hey, how you doing today? Great. Oh, by the way, let me tell you what we're doing in China." Like, oh, okay. Multiple officials. Like, before he said like half a dozen. So, I mean, like, these people, he just must be, I mean, does he have, like, weed in his office or something? It's like, hey, I got some really good pot in here. Come on by. Or, like, he has a really good coffee machine with a really good coffee, and so everybody kind of just gravitates over there. And then while they're in there, say, oh, and by the way, let me volunteer some information that I probably shouldn't be telling you, but, you seem like such a nice guy, and you're non-threatening, you're married, you got kids, and you're like a good shoulder I can cry on. Oh, yeah, of course, that's what I do. He probably said he was a psychiatrist and, in the early days. Or, well, who knows? I mean, who knows with these people? They're just... when they're on our side, you want them doing this, but when they're going against us, they're going against the American people and our republic, and the flag for which it stands, the republic for which it stands. I mean, that's it's not good because you see how dastardly they could be. It's like Misford when he was talking to Papadopoulos or Halper or Downer. I mean, these guys were just ruthless. They didn't care if they knew they were going to ruin this guy's life. They knew his life was over as he knew it. The money, they knew his status, the work he did in foreign policy organizations, his advising and consultation business. He knew that was. They knew when they went to set him up, they knew all that was. They knew he was finished. His life was over as he knew it, and he might even end up in prison, and they didn't care. I want you to think about that for a second. They did not care. This guy was innocent as all get-go. Papadopoulos, I mean, as far as innocent, like a nice person, nice guy, never been committed a crime before or anything, had top security clearance. Just a really nice guy, was married, just about his business, gets asked to join the campaign because of his foreign policy expertise. Knows a lot about Israel and the Palestinian situation. And he's like, and he's sitting in a bar and some guy comes up to him and starts talking to him, hey, yeah, I do foreign policy. Oh, me too. Hey, let me buy you a drink. And by the way, you want to buy some Hillary Clinton emails? He's like, whoa. Then, of course, he, supposedly Downer says he told me. So, of course, we got to open up an investigation now as of July 31, 2016. And this guy's life is over. Carter Page's life is over. All these guys that you saw, on Fox during the year, all the money they had to spend, give up their retirement, all the wealth they earned during their lifetime. Not even wealth, but just the money they earned. They had to mortgage everything. They had to dip into the savings, 401ks, all gone. Then they had to go GoFundMe and beg for handouts, beg for money for lawyer fees. And then none of them get indicted. Not one of them. And that's what's going on here, And when you read the pages of this thing, I invite everybody to. It's on the internet. Whistleblower complaint. You'll see it's PDF, and you just see just how disgusting this whole thing is. I mean, he got in close to these people. They trusted him down at the White House, and then he used everything they told him against him, and then he twisted it too. He didn't just get verbatim too. He twisted it, and you can imagine those conversations, where he's twisting it to a way to get these people to say what he wants to hear, what he wants them to say, and even if they weren't planning on saying what they end up saying, he got what he wanted. Well, this person told me this. Oh, okay. Well, he leaves out a lot of things that other people told him. He leaves out all the the good stuff. Let's see. Then you see down at the bottom of this page here, let me get to it. And Steve, I want to say Turley, I think it was Turley this morning, brought this to my attention when I was watching a show. Let's see, right here, down at the bottom. In a report published by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, the OCCRP, on July 22nd. Let's see here. On July 22nd, two associates of Giuliani reportedly traveled to Kiev in May of 2019 and met with Mr. Bakanov and another close Zelensky advisor. So you see him here, referencing this organization. And when Turley talked about this morning was, that's a Soros organization. That's George Soros' organization. Of course, Trump is an anti-globalist, Soros is a pro-globalist. And so the fact that this guy's referencing these reports makes this guy out to be a globalist or maybe even in bed with George Soros himself. We don't know. My guess is we never will know. But I thought that was kind of rather interesting. And thank you, Mr. Steve Turley, for pointing that out this morning. Okay, page 5. All right, and let's see. And let's see here. So, let's see. So basically, and let's see. This now he talks about circumstances leading up to the July 25th phone call. Now, these dates are important, and I'll tell you why. Because you can kind of see when he gets activated, if you will. And it's based on certain dates. Okay, look at first December 7th. And that's why I say Christmas time. This guy probably sent in, if not sooner. December 7th, 27. Nope, I'm going to get it wrong. December 7th, 2018. Thank you. Trump announces he's appointing William Barr. Sessions steps down. He's going to appoint William Barr. Okay. February 14th, Barr is confirmed. Mueller gets his report out by March 24th. Okay, because he said, okay, you got a month, you got 30 days, give me the damn report, stop sitting on this stupid thing. So March 24th, okay, and you're seeing things happen around March. And then also March 20th, you have, let me pull it up here. You have March 20th, that's when the article in the Hill is written, and that, lays out all kinds of things about what's going on in, what's that guy's name from the Hill? God damn it. Just forgot off the top of my head here real quick. Let me pull that up. That's John Solomon. Yeah, John Solomon for the Hill. You see him on Hannity a lot as well. And they just did a hit. Washington Post just did a hit piece on him also to try to say he's not a credible guy and things of that sort. It's really, really disgusting. So, all right. So anyway, so March 20th, John Solomon writes in the Hill about all these allegations about Biden and how Biden got this guy fired because they were looking at Burisma, and Biden's son sits on, of course, as you heard by now, Biden's son sat on the board of directors of Burisma, making $50,000 a year as a show-up job to help with problems like this. And his daddy could come over and save the day for everybody and get the prosecutor fired who was looking at Burisma, which, of course, they said, there was no investigation going on at the time in the spring of 2016. Well, that's funny because the criminal case wasn't closed until September of 2016, and the case did not settle until January. In fact, I think it was January 10th of 2017, like 10 days before Trump actually got inaugurated. And the name of that attorney, and let me pull him up real quick. That was John Beretta, and we'll jump over to this story real quick just to kind of show you what's going on with that. All right, so anyway, so this is a story, John Beretta, this is published February 1st in the Kiev Post 2017. Okay, it's right after Trump got inaugurated. This is a long time after Biden said the investigation was over. And we'll jump over to this story real quick. So John Beretta, for us it was important to close all cases against Burisma and Nikolai Silovsky in an illegally sound manner. And so they did an interview with him, and so let's take a look at that. And a lot of the documents Solomon references are from the American legal team. The defense attorneys, somehow Solomon got his hands on it. I don't know how. Who cares? Maybe Zaleski gave it to him. Who knows? Whatever. But anyway, he got a lot of legal documents. So anyways, let's take a look at this interview that John Beretta, formerly with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Justice Department under, I believe, President Obama, and I think possibly President Bush also. Let's take a look. So, yeah, this is from February 1st, 2017. So the idea that when Biden was over there telling him to fire the prosecutor because he was corrupt, there was no investigation into his son or Burisma is a lie. I mean, I'm sorry, these are dates. Dates don't lie, okay? And September, the criminal case wasn't closed till September of 2016. 2016. And Biden was over there in the spring of 2016, okay? So anyway, here we go. In mid-January, Burisma Group announced that all cases against its president and Burisma companies were fully closed. The former minister, Nikolai Zakalakias, one of the few public officials from the previous government who voluntarily subjected himself to the investigation in the Ukraine. After reviewing the evidence in London and Kiev, the criminal proceedings against Zavsky were dismissed. Again, if you're in a jam, hire a really good attorney and hire a really good law firm if you're in this kind of a jam. This firm has PR guys, you name it. They don't just win in court; they win out there in public opinion as well. The court of public opinion, not just a courtroom, if you will. But this law firm is with Kravitz. I mean, Yeah, I mean, if you could, if you know, well, first of all, no, none of us could afford these guys. I mean, you're talking millions and millions of dollars to hire these guys. Okay, they come with names, they come with influence, they come with the ability to talk to people. They worked in the Justice Department for years and years. They know everybody over there. They can make deals. They're generally trustworthy. I mean, they work hard. They work lots of hours. So this guy got his money's worth. Let's put it that way. So anyway, I'm sure it was lots and lots and lots of money. Okay. In the Ukrainian media, opinions about the need for presenting the public report and reviewing the decision have been voiced multiple times. An American lawyer and former U.S. Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Beretta was one of the key attorneys on Zelensky's defense team. In an exclusive interview with Ukrainian News, Beretta talks about how the defense strategy was developed in the Ukraine, whether all cases are closed, if any, legal breeding. So here's the first question. Why were the cases against this reporter asking the attorney here, I got his name. What is it? John Beretta. There you go. I'm terrible with names. All right. So here's the first question. Recently, Burisma paid a large amount in quote-unquote back taxes. Some have questions whether the payment of 180 million uranium dollars, 90 million U.S. dollars about, was a payoff for the case to be closed. Right. So in other words, even the public over there weren't buying this. Like, oh, we're paying 180 million uranium dollars, 90 million U.S. dollars as quote-unquote back taxes. It's like, no, this is a payoff to the government to make the case go away. So in other words, Burisma wasn't clean. And they were being investigated for a reason. They were giving out bribes and extortion and all kinds of stuff. Okay, they weren't clean at all. But they got the big-ass law firms. They had all the international ties, Joe Biden. And in fact, you even hear Mr. Beretta here, he mentions who he talked to. And so let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. He says, when and how did you meet Nikolai Zelensky? Who didn't invite you to join his legal team? And he talked about all the people he met, and he says this right here down at the bottom. Let me pull this up, make sure you can see it. I met with Mr. Zalewski, Burisma's management and legal team, and Burisma's distinguished board of directors. Well, who's on the board of directors? That was Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. So, I mean, he's even referencing the board of directors that he met with to represent these guys. It was the former vice president's son. So, I mean, this is, it's the vice president had already taken care of the former prosecutor. And this guy met with the temporary prosecutor, and then of course he negotiated the case with the permanent prosecutor after that. But the idea is like, okay, you're going to write a check for 90 million U.S. dollars, and the case goes away. I mean, is that justice? I don't live in the Ukraine. I don't know, but it is what it is. So, but again, even the people on the ground over there were like, we don't buy this back taxes bullshit. We think this is some kind of a not like a bribe so much as that, okay, we're going to fine you $90 million U.S. can go into our treasury, and just don't do it again and shut the hell up, and thank God you got lucky, got away with it. So that was kind of funny. But anyway, so let's go back and take a look at. Let's see. Mm-hmm. All right. So we'll jump over to some of these stories over here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see. The next one. Okay, let's go jump right to the Solomon story. Make sure we're not too big here on this document. And we're good. All right, Solomon, those one secret memos cast down on Joe Biden's Ukraine story. Again, Joe Biden said, there was no investigation at the time. I went over to get rid of this prosecutor because he was corrupt, and our Western allies agreed we had to get rid of him. He wasn't tackling the corruption in the Ukraine. Okay, so we had to get rid of him. But he said there was no investigation. But as you just saw there from the story there from the Kiev Post, yeah, the case isn't settled till January 2017, almost a year after Biden was there getting the prosecutor fired, in exchange for giving them $1 billion in aid that he was going to hold up if they didn't get it. So anyway, Solomon, these one secret memos cast down on Joe Biden's Ukraine story. Let's get rid of this. All right. Former Vice President Joe Biden, now a 2020 Democratic presidential contender, has locked into a specific story about the controversy in the Ukraine. He insists that in the spring of 2016, he strong-armed Ukraine to fire chief. Excuse me a sec. He insists that in the spring of 2016 he strong-armed Ukraine to fire its chief prosecutor solely because Biden believed that if that official was corrupt and inept, not because the Ukrainian was investigating a natural gas company, to wit Burisma Holdings, that hired Biden's son Hunter into a lucrative job. There's just one problem. Hundreds of pages of never-released memos and documents, many from inside the American team, helping Burisma to stave off his legal troubles, conflict with Biden's narrative. They raise the troubling prospect that U.S. officials may have painted a false picture in Ukraine that helped ease Burisma's legal troubles, and stop prosecutors' plans to interview Hunter Biden during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Not good, as Trump would say. For instance, Burisma's American legal representatives met with the Ukrainian officials just days after Biden forced the firing of the country's chief prosecutor and offered a quote-unquote an apology for the dissemination of false information by U.S. representatives and public figures about the Ukrainian prosecutors. So, in other words, according to the Ukrainian government's official memo of the meeting. So they came over there and they said, hey, look, sorry we had a bad mouth through your office and the last guy got fired. But now remember, these are lawyers showing up. Okay, they know the investigation's still going on. It's still ongoing. And the new guy coming in, probably not real happy about the last guy getting fired. So now they got to go kiss this guy's ass a little bit. Okay, and no matter how much money you're getting paid, you still got to kiss somebody's ass. So they got to go over and kiss and say, hey, you know what, man, we're really sorry about what happened. But they had a public relations firm also. And, of course, Biden was his own public relations firm, if you will. So putting all these stories out there about how bad, how corrupt I think Stoikin, his name, how corrupt he was, and how corrupt the office was. But now they got to deal with this new guy, and they're like, oh shit, we better go tell him we're sorry. And in fact, they even so the effort to secure that meeting began the same day the prosecutor's firing was announced. The same day. In addition, Burisma's American team, probably the guy we just saw earlier, whatever his name was, again I forget, Burisma's American team offered to introduce Ukrainian prosecutors to Obama administration officials to make amends, according to that memo in the American legal team's internal emails. So basically they're saying, okay, look, we'll even take you over there, you can meet with the Obama administration, we'll say, hey, you know what, that was a PR thing on our part, hey, these guys are good, they're fine, and we'll introduce you, we'll bring you over. They have that kind of access. I mean, this is, again, these are big players on these law firms. They have that kind of access. So the memos raised troubling questions, according to the Hill. If the Ukraine prosecutor's firing involved only his alleged corruption and ineptitude, why did Burisma's American legal team refer to those allegations as false information? Because they were false. That's why. If the firing had nothing to do with the Burisma case, as Biden had adamantly claimed, why would Burisma's American lawyers contact the replacement prosecutor within hours of the termination and urgently seek a meeting in Ukraine to discuss the case? Good question. Ukrainian prosecutors say they have tried to get this information to the U.S. Department of Justice since the summer of 2018, figuring it might be evidence of possible violations of U.S. ethics laws. First, they hired a former federal prosecutor to bring the information to the U.S. attorney in New York, Southern District of New York, the guys who were going after Trump, Cohen, all that stuff, who they say showed no interest. Yeah, because they're busy trying to go after Trump and Cohen and everything else and Stormy Daniels, and they ain't got time for anything bad about Biden or anything. So they said they showed no interest. Then the Ukrainians reached out to President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Ukraine's new president, Vladimir Zelensky, told Trump in July that he plans to launch his own wide-ranging investigation into what happened with the Bidens and Burisma. It's like people want to know. I mean, this is this guy's country. It's like, hey, we just can't have Americans coming over here and fucking with us, and then we get left with all the mess behind. So during that phone call, he goes, I'm knowledgeable about the situation, Zelensky told Trump. And again, the big thing is they reached out to Giuliani before Giuliani reached out to them. The press is making it sound like Trump and Giuliani were flying around the world looking to meet the Ukrainians and saying, oh, come on, you got to dig up some dirt on Biden. Well, they were trying to get to the bottom of themselves to figure out what was going on, and they reached out to the Department of Justice, out of New York, and nobody seemed interested, so they said, well, let's go a different way. And they said, well, Giuliani's good friends with the president. He's an attorney. He used to be a U.S. attorney, in fact. Well, maybe he can get us, in the door with the president or in the door of the Department of Justice. So, in fact, this phone call is in relation to all this going on. Giuliani's already met with these guys. They've met in the Ukraine. They met there. They met in New York. All public meetings. I mean, this is not like nothing hidden. I think he met some guy in Madrid. I don't know why Madrid. I don't know. But I think everything else was in the Ukraine, was in Kiev, or in New York. and you can't do anything in New York. Giuliani can't walk around New York without somebody noticing, hey, look, man, there's Rudy Giuliani. And who's that Ukrainian guy he's with? I mean, okay. So anyway, then so Zelensky told Trump, "I'm knowledgeable about the situation." Yeah, because he had been briefed on it by, I'm sure, by definitely by July 25th, asking the American. He got elected in April, asking the American president to forward any evidence he might know about. The issue of the investigation of the case is actually the issue of making sure to restore the honesty. So we will take care of that, and we'll work on the investigation of the case. That's him talking to Trump. Biden had faced scrutiny since has faced scrutiny since December 2015, and that's an interesting date, December 2015, when the New York Times published a story noting that Burisma hired Hunter Biden just weeks after the vice president was asked by President Obama. I wonder how he got that gig. Right? Oh, I'll take care of the Ukraine. Oh, okay. Was asked by President Obama to oversee U.S.-Ukraine relations. The story also alerted Biden's office that Prosecutor General Victor Shotkin, that's the guy that Biden wanted fired, had an active investigation of Burisma and its founder. Documents that Solomon obtained this year detail an effort to change the narrative after the Times story about Hunter Biden with the help of the Obama State Department. This Obama State Department, God, I mean, those people, anyway, all over the Russia collusion story. Anyway, Hunter Biden's American business partner in Burisma, Devon Archer, texted a colleague 2 days after the Times story about a strategy to counter the new wave of scrutiny, and stated that he and Hunter had just met at the State Department. The text suggested that there was about to be a new U.S. aid project the embassy is announcing with us, and that it was perfect for us to move forward now with momentum. So anyway, Solomon goes on to say, I have sued the State Department for any records relating to the meeting. The reason is simple. There is both a public interest and an ethics question in knowing if Hunter Biden and his team sought state assistance, the Department of State's assistance, while his father was vice president. The controversy ignited anew earlier this year when I disclosed that Joe Biden admitted during a 2018 videotaped speech that as vice president in March of 2016, he threatened to cancel the $1 billion in U.S. loan guarantees to pressure Ukraine's then President Petro Poroshenko to fire Shokin. At the time, Shokin's office was investigating Burisma. Obviously, because again, the criminal case didn't close until September of 16, and it was not settled with a $90 million US dollar payoff in January of 2017. At the time, Shokin's office was investigating Burisma. Shokin told me he was making plans to question Hunter Biden about the $3 million in fees that Biden and his partner Archer collected from Burisma through their American firm. Documents seized by the FBI in an unrelated case confirmed the payments, which in many months totaled more than $166,000. Some media outlets have reported that at the time Joe Biden forced the firing in March of 2016, there were no open investigations. Some media have reported that. Those reports are wrong. A British-based investigation of Burisma's owner was closed down in early 2015 on a technicality when a deadline for documents was not met, the exculpatory documents. But the Ukraine Prosecutor General's office still had 2 open inquiries in March of 2016, according to the official case file provided to Solomon. One of those cases involved taxes, the other allegation of corruption. Here we go, here's the payoff. Burisma announced the cases against it were not closed and settled until January 2017. After Solomon first reported this in his column, the New York Times and ABC News published similar stories confirming his reporting. Joe Biden has since responded that he forced Shokin's firing over concerns about corruption and ineptitude, which he claims were widely shared by Western allies. It had nothing to do with the fact of Burisma's investigation into his son. Some of the new documents Solomon obtains calls that claim into question. Further, in a newly sworn affidavit prepared for a European court, Shokin testified that when he was fired in March of 2016, he was told, Shokin, this is the prosecutor, was told that the reason was that Biden was unhappy about the Burisma investigation. And he goes on to write in his affidavit to the European Court. The truth is that I was forced out because I was leading a wide-ranging corruption probe into Burisma Holdings, a natural gas firm located in the Ukraine, and Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was a member of the board of directors. On several occasions, President Poroshenko asked me to have a look at the case against Burisma. This is Shokin talking. On several occasions, President Poroshenko asked me to have a look at the case against Burisma and consider the possibility of winding down the investigative actions in respect of this company. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money at stake here. These people are getting paid. People forget that, people get paid get bribes and stuff. And I'm sure Burisma was handing this guy a lot of money. Hey, get rid of, shut down this prosecutor, And so he says, maybe you just got to get rid of this case. And then Shokin's was like, I refuse to close this investigation down. Shokin certainly would have had reason to hold a grudge over his firing, but his account is supported by documents from Burisma's legal team in America, which appeared to be moving into Ukraine with intensity as Biden's effort to fire Shokin picked up steam. Burisma's own accounting records show that it paid tens of thousands of dollars while Hunter Biden served on the board of directors of an American lobbying and public relations firm, Blue Star Strategies, run by Sally Painter and Kevin Tramontano, whatever, who both served in President Bill Clinton's administration. Just days before Biden forced Shokin's firing, Painter met with the number 2 official at the Ukrainian embassy in Washington and asked to meet officials at Kiev around the same time that Joe Biden visited there. Ukrainian embassy employee Osanka Schuyler emailed Painter afterward. With regard to the meetings at Kiev, I suggest that you wait until next week when there is an expected vote of the government's reshuffle. Ukraine's Washington embassy confirmed the conversation between Schuyler and Painter, but said that the reference to a shakeup was not specifically referring to Shokin's firing or anything to do with Burisma. Painter then asked one of the Ukraine's embassy workers to open the door for meetings with Ukraine's prosecutors about Burisma investigation. The memos show. Eventually, Blue Star would pay that Ukrainian official money for his help with the prosecutor's office. Beretta, Painter, Tramontano, Hunter Biden, and Joe Biden's campaign have not responded to numerous calls and emails seeking comment. Well, Beretta's not going to respond. He's the attorney. He's like, hey, I'm done. Plus you got to worry about attorney-client privilege. I mean, he had to give the interview in the Ukrainian Kiev Post. I mean, sorry. He's representing the company that does a lot of business there. He had to give that interview. This one over here, no, probably not. On March 29th, the day Shokin's firing was announced, Beretta asked to speak to, Beretta's the attorney again, asked to speak to Yuri Savruk, the prosecutor named to temporarily replace Shokin, but was turned down, the memo show. Blue Star, using the Ukrainian embassy worker it had hired, eventually scored a meeting with Savruk in April 2016, a week after Shokin's firing. Beretta, Tramontano, and Painter attended the meeting in Kiev, according to Blue Star's memos. Savruk memorialized the meeting in a government memo that the General Prosecutor's Office provided to Solomon, stating that the 3 Americans offered an apology for the false narrative that had been provided by U.S. officials about Shokin being corrupt and inept. They realized that the information disseminated in the U.S. was incorrect, and that they would facilitate my visit to the U.S. for the purpose of delivering the true information to the State Department management, the memo stated. The memo also quoted the Americans as saying that they knew Shokin pursued an aggressive corruption investigation against Burisma's owner, only to be thwarted by British allies. These individuals noted that they had been aware of the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine had implemented all required steps for prosecution, that he was released by the British court due to the underperformance of the British law enforcement agencies. These memos provide a vastly different portrayal of Shokin than Biden's, and its contents were partially backed by subsequent emails from Blue Star and Beretta that confirmed the offer to bring Ukrainian authorities to meet the Obama administration in Washington. For instance, Tramontano wrote the Ukrainian prosecutor team on April 16, 2016, saying U.S. Justice Department officials, including top international prosecutor Bruce Swartz, might be willing to meet. The reforms are not known to the U.S. Justice Department. It would be useful for the Prosecutor General to meet officials in the U.S. and share the information directly, she wrote. I mean, there you go. I mean, pretty crazy. Oh, God. All right, so, yeah, hold on a sec, and I'll be right back. Hold on. I'll be right back. All right. All right. Anyway, let's try that. That sounds better. Hey. All right. Anyway, thanks for letting me take a break there. I appreciate it. All right. Yeah. I hope you like the zombie. Yeah, that's cool. It's zombie was keeping an eye on everybody. I'm going on here. There we go. Got a little glitch there with the internet tonight. Sorry, guys. Anyway, real windy. So when it's windy, for some reason, the internet is not so good. I have no idea. Go figure. But yeah, one other thing I wanted to bring up also, uh, when one of the things this guy wrote in his report also, and this is on page 7, I can probably bring this. Well, I'll just tell you what he said. He said, starting in mid-May, and now this, he's given a reason why he's hearing from all these officials. He's given a reason why people are coming to him, and this is like why his antenna, his radar is going up, which is bullshit. Because he says, starting in mid-May, I heard from multiple U.S. officials they were deeply concerned by what they viewed as Mr. Giuliani's circumvention of national security decision-making process to engage with the Ukrainians. Now, again, if he's leaving out the fact that the Ukrainians actually reached out to Giuliani first. But a little more than that also, and again, back to like the most popular guy in the White House. Everybody's coming up and talking to him for whatever reason. Who knows? But mid-May, that's an important date. I'll tell you why. Because May 13th is when John Durham got appointed by, or not appointed, but got assigned to, the investigation to find out how this whole Russia collusion investigation started. So that's May 13th. And he says, mid-May, I'm starting to hear from people. Well, no, he probably wasn't. Okay, that's just him saying mid-May is when he starts, getting his antenna up. He's getting antenna up because let's be honest. Durham is one of those guys that just, he's a dick. I've said it about him in the past. He's a great guy. He's just an asshole. He's a dick, and he has no friends. I mean, he's one of those guys you can tell he has no friends. Okay, and he doesn't care. And he'll go after anybody. He doesn't care where it leads, who's going to be. And they know that about him. They know about him. He's been, U.S. attorney out of Connecticut for quite some time. I think Blumenthal even voted for him. I think he started in the Obama White House. He started off as a U.S. attorney in Connecticut. He got appointed by Obama, I think. He was recommended by Blumenthal, a Democrat. And he's an asshole. He's been appointed by Republicans and Democrats. He goes after corruption. CIA, he's gone after them in the past before, and they know that about him. So he's probably getting close. I mean, he's starting to, get through things. He's starting to piece it all together. He's starting to make sense out of it all. Now, they all know the whole story, obviously, but he's starting to piece it together. So let me get this one thing off of here real quick. All right. So yeah. So that's why mid-May is an important date. And some of the comments he makes, like he was talking about like how Lusenko was initially making the allegations about Biden and all this stuff, and he tries to avert that, not avert. He tries to allege that Mr. Lusenko was only trying to make those comments because his boss was getting ready to lose his job because the election was going to look like it was going to head for Zelensky. So he was saying things that he thinks Zelensky would want to hear. And he talks about like the two other guys, Sintek and Leshenko. Now Leshenko is important because I don't know how this went down, but let me see if I can pull this story up real quick here. This is Lashenko is important because somebody just quoted Lashenko as saying something that Lashenko never said he said. To be honest with you, let's see, where do I have it? Let me see if I can get it real quick. Okay, this was picked up by the Washington Examiner. It's in their opinion section, but it's definitely worth looking at. Ukrainian scoop implodes within hours of publication. This came down on the 26th. And so anyway, this is interesting because this whistleblower, so-called whistleblower, he writes in a footnote that Lushenko, Mr. Sintek and Mr. Lushenko are two of Mr. Lusenko's, that's the guy who initially reported about Biden, main domestic rivals. Lushenko has no legal now he's making these judgment calls about Lushenko, like he's trying to badmouth Lushenko. He said he has no legal training, has been widely criticized in Ukraine for politicizing criminal probes and using his tenure as prosecutor to protect corrupt Ukrainian officials. Now that's bullshit. Okay, this is just stuff just to push the narrative. And then he says he has publicly feuded with Sintek, who has. And then this now watch this. Watch this huge opinion judgment call he makes. Okay, he has publicly feuded with Mr. Sintek, who heads Ukraine's only competent anti-corruption body. Like, okay, so in other words, even though the guys were really doing a real investigation into Burisma, that, and they were really going after him until Biden put the kibosh on him by going over there and making the president fire the prosecutor. This is their only competent anti-corruption body. Even though the attorneys for Burisma went over and apologized to the prosecutor's office and said, "Look, we'll even bring you into the State Department. We'll have you meet with the Obama administration and say, all this stuff we put out there was false, and we apologize. We're sorry. We had to do what we had to do." So even with all that, he's still saying, "Oh, these guys were only legitimate guys in town." Well, they weren't. Okay. And so he's making all these judgments, giving all these opinions. Again, this is not like a whistleblower complaint. And so Lushenko gets some notice. He gets in the news because why? Because people are stupid. Anyway, and this is an opinion piece written by the Washington Examiner, and it was by Beckett Adams. So, writes, if you are leery already of the press coverage of allegations that President Trump pressured the Ukrainian president to investigate Joe Biden, botched reports this week from ABC News and Axios. Axios, big leftist paper. They make no money. I think they get their money from George Soros. I'm not sure. Somebody gives them a bunch of money just to stay open. ABC News and Axios will make you only more suspicious. Axios breathlessly tweeted Wednesday evening, just in, an advisor to Ukraine's president tells ABC News that Trump's insistence for the two leaders to discuss a possible investigation into Joe Biden was a precondition for their now infamous July 25th call. As of this writing, that tweet, they wrote this on Thursday, it went out Wednesday. As of this writing, that tweet, which is still live, had been shared more than 8,000 times. Well, whoops. Axios, a company story which mostly just repeats ABC's original reporting, originally bore the headline, "Advisor to Ukraine's president says Biden case was preconditioned to Trump phone call." Sounds big. Sounds ominous. Oh, no. They got him now. The smoking gun. The noose is tightening. It's a bellwether mark or whatever they called it. I don't know. They have all these metaphors they use. And so anyway, ABC, for its part, published its original scoop, earlier Wednesday, titled "Ukrainians Understood Biden Probe Was Conditioned for Trump-Zelensky Phone Call," cited by Ukrainian advisor. The report began originally when anyway, so let's see. The only problem with this story, the supposed advisor to the Ukrainian president, which would have been this idiot, Leshchenko, the supposed advisor to the Ukrainian president is no longer an advisor. In fact, Leshchenko has been on the outside since even before the July 25th phone call, meaning he is at best just another guy who heard a thing from another guy. But it's actually even worse than that. According to Radio Free Europe's Christopher Miller, whose beat includes covering Ukrainian politics, Leshchenko said he did not tell ABC insistence for leaders to discuss Biden probe was preconditioned for call. So ABC just made that up. But see, they know they can just we've seen this play before. We saw this the last 2 years. They'll come out, they'll say something really stupid. Every Friday night, Brian Williams, the smoking gun. Is this the smoking gun? Every Friday night, I swear to God, for 2 years, like 104 Fridays, is like, and then have all these experts, these panelists, all these people who know all this stuff, all these people, former U.S. attorneys, former assistant U.S. attorneys, former this, former that, and here they are selling their law license to tell a bunch of BS on air, just to make a few bucks, because why not, I guess. Who knows? I don't know. But it was and I know, I'll tell you why it was BS, because by Tuesday, at the latest, the story was dead. In other words, they never came back and said on Tuesday, "Oh, by the way, we checked out that story we covered Friday. It turned out to be nothing. It wasn't a smoking gun. It wasn't the noose is tightening. It wasn't the ship is sinking. It wasn't like it wasn't anything." But they never came back and said, "Oh, we got that one wrong." No, what they did is they just let it die. Didn't tell anybody they got it wrong, and then like around Thursday or so, they started with another bunch of bullshit. Somebody leaked something that was totally wrong, and they just pick it up without any pushback or any kind of investigative reporting, and they just put it out. And then Friday night, here we go. Every Friday, I was always waiting. Every Friday night, is this the smoking gun? Is this it? Is this what finally undoes the Trump team? Is this it? Is this it? And then, of course, the same thing. Here comes Tuesday. So they know this. They just put it out there, and it gets the headlines. It gets people all riled up. And this is a big propaganda machine. You got the DNC. You got the intelligence community, which don't appear to be any honorable men running around in there. If they are, they must be hiding out someplace. The intelligence community, the DNC, and the media. I mean, the media is just all over this. Legacy media. That's what they're doing. And then they come up with a correction, and the only thing they correct is that, well, the guy isn't currently working there. They don't say that. They don't bother to tell you that he said, "Hey, I never said that." They don't bother to say that, and they just let it go, and it's just they just say, "Oh, we made a mistake. He doesn't currently work for the president. He used to work. We meant ex-advisor." But they don't say that the guy said this, that he did not tell ABC. They don't say that. They kind of leave that part out, So anyway, all right. Let me see. Take this down here. All right. Let me hold on. Let me get to somewhere else. Let's see. There we go. All right. Okay. A little bit better to take those things off of there so you can actually see what I'm reading to you. That might help a little bit. So, I mean, that's the kind of nonsense, we've seen for 2 years. I mean, people say, oh, the American people are smarter than that. They know better. I hope so. I really hope so, because it's the same BS we saw for 2 years. I used to get in arguments with good friends of mine. Well, you don't know. You were never a U.S. attorney. You weren't there. I said, I know how to read a statute. I know how to read case law. And, unlike a lot of the guys that were on TV, I actually try cases for a living. I know what it looks like inside of a courtroom. Not just in the audience, but actually standing at counsel table in front of a jury. Okay, so and these guys, they get on there and they just spew all this nonsense, and then of course nobody checks the sources, nobody because they don't want to. They don't want to know that it's false. They're happy that they got it wrong, because it'll get the headlines, it'll get people talking, and then every week they put out more nonsense, and people go discouraged, and even some Trump supporters might say, oh no, I guess he really is bad. I guess he probably did do it. He probably did it. But, maybe I'll vote for him anyway. That kind of shit. Like, just suppress the vote and get their base all riled up and everything. But anyway, phones are now open. As you see the sign there, open phones, 775-273-8970. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get through all those details. Otherwise, we'd be here. If I took phone calls while we were getting through all those details, we'd be here until probably about 4 o'clock in the morning just getting through those stories. But yeah, so yeah, if you want to call in, 775-273-8970. And we'll take your phone call. If you want to appear by VMix video call, also, we can get you in. And you can just send me an email, or send me an email, or if I have your email address, put in the chat, say, hey man, I want to appear by VMix video call, and I'll shoot you the link. You hit the link, you come on in, I take care of the rest on this end. Not a problem. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and jump to the next story, and let's see. But yeah, I mean, the big thing is like, again, the big narrative from the media, and I've heard it on several different outlets, like CNN, MSNBC, several different shows. Oh, there was no investigation when Biden went over there. The investigation was already dead when Biden went over there. And they just say it like it's true. Like they say, oh, no, it was over. And it's like, well, I mean, even if you didn't have these memos from John Solomon, the memos he got from the illegal team, even if you didn't have those memos and the emails and all that, you had the Kiev Post story in January of 2017. I found the Kiev Post story. I wasn't linked to John Solomon's article. I found it. I'm not a genius. I mean, I just punched in the name of the attorney. I wanted to see who the attorney, they mentioned the name of the attorney, so I punched in, I wanted to get information on the name of the attorney and what he did, who he was with before, who got appointed by. I was kind of curious about him. And sure enough, here comes a story from the Kiev Post. Now, you think these multi-billion-dollar corporations, that run MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, you think, they got some guy like me, maybe, or younger, who's faster, can just pull this up and say, hey, before you start saying that stuff on TV, you might want to check this story out, where the case wasn't settled until January 2017. They paid like $90 million US dollars to get the case to go away. Oh, and they hired like a multi-million-dollar law firm to make it happen, who had all kinds of ties with the State Department and the Justice Department. Oh, so they guess they were in trouble? Yeah. And they even apologized? Oh, yeah. Okay. You think they could have done that? Well, no, but they don't want to know that. Even if they knew it, they would have buried it and just had the same story. They said Trump was a conspiracy theorist and the investigation was over. Nobody said, and again, they didn't close the criminal case until September. Biden's over there, what, March, April? I mean, come on. I mean, cut it out already. I mean, just tell the damn truth. Again, I don't want favorable news for our side. Just tell the damn news. Give us the news. Do like Carl's opinion does. Give us the news. Report the news. Do like I don't do investigative journalism. Like I just pull up documents and I cross check news articles and I look for stuff and I happen to know some stuff from school and life experience. I mean, shit. I don't get paid to be on CNN or MSNBC. I mean, these guys know this stuff is out there. They find it. They have researchers. They have guys that just do nothing except look for stories. And I guarantee you they bring them the pushback stories, and they give them the question to ask, the people they have on the air, and they just, it's all softball questions. If you ever watch it, it's really disgusting. I mean, oh, Jesus. It's just terrible. But yeah, good seeing everybody down there in the chat tonight. And let's see, what do we got going here? Let's take a look at the next story. And this story kind of goes along the same lines. Like Kurt Volker resigns as U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine. Now, one of the things this guy mentions in his report, let me see if I can find it. Oh, yeah, this is on page 6 of his quote-unquote whistleblower complaint. And he says that Volker, that actually Giuliani was meeting with these guys, and Volker was kind of worried, and so Volker went and met with the Kiev people saying, oh, I just want to give you a warning about Giuliani and shit. Well, it turns out not true, and Volker just resigned. Why? Because it turns out, whoops, let's see, that, okay, so that basically, let's see, the official, here we go. The official said Volker told Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Friday of his decision to leave the job following disclosure that he had connected Trump's personal lawyer, Rudolph Giuliani, with Ukrainian officials to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden. He was the contact. He's the one who set it up. They were trying to get a hold of Giuliani. I guess he knew all those guys, and they said, hey, we want to get a hold of Giuliani. And so he was like the go-between between the Ukrainians trying to get a hold of Giuliani. And Giuliani said, hey, you guys want to talk to you? They need some help. And, obviously it was beneficial for Giuliani to talk to him because it was about Joseph Biden and also about the deep state and how this whole mess got started. So, I mean, it was a win-win for Giuliani as far as he was concerned. But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy. And let's see. And just to remind everybody what DebateGate was, again, this was when the CIA doesn't like you and they want to get rid of you. And this was from 1980. So DebateGate or BriefingGate was a political scandal affecting the administration of Ronald Reagan. It took place in the final days of the 1980 presidential election. Reagan's team had somehow acquired President Jimmy Carter's briefing papers. And again, Stefan Halper was involved in this, okay? Stefan Halper, the guy who met with Papadopoulos and Carter Page, who was brought in, again, I'll say it again, I mean, whether people want to believe this or not, it's like, see, counterintel is like when you think you know what they're doing, you don't, okay? The story that is being discovered is that, they were trying to hurt Trump by investigating this Russia collusion story, and that would hurt him in the election. That, by investigating him, it would hurt his election. But that doesn't make any sense. That was the main reason for it, because the FBI was very cautious about not letting this get out publicly until after he got elected. Because remember now, they fired Christopher Steele because Christopher Steele was trying to sell the dossier off. In fact, he even did an interview with Yahoo News, and when they found that out, they fired him. They said, okay, we're not using you anymore. Because, see, what they were doing is this whole pretext like, oh, we think there's Russia collusion. Nonsense. Okay, they knew there wasn't. They needed a pretext to be able to grab one individual who's associated somewhat flimsily even with the campaign. Because like in the Snowden movie, like when you get that FISA warrant, okay, that means now every phone call we've made, text message, email, whatever, is stored for like the last, say, 30 years. in these big buildings with these huge servers. I mean, they store all this data and information and phone calls and emails and everything. It's stored. So when you get a FISA court approved warrant, you then the FBI or FBI walk that over to the NSA. And you said, "Hey man, I got this warrant on Carter Page, and I want to hear all his phone calls and everything." And they go, "Yeah, okay, Carter Page." Well, here's how it goes. Remember, after Snowden got busted, okay, what did Obama say? He did a press conference, and he said, not busted, but when he came out and divulged what President Obama was doing by spying on all of us, Obama says, okay, I talked to the NSA. They're only going to go like 4 levels out from the target, meaning, okay, Carter Page is a target. Okay, he talks to 20 people. Okay, that's your first level. Now, each of those 20 people, now say talk to 20 people each. Okay, that becomes the third level. Then each of those 20 people talk to 20 people. That's your fourth level. Now, when you get the permutations, the numbers that go up is, I think Snowden was in the movie, they were showing like millions of people. So the whole trick is, and then you get to listen to all their phone calls. The whole trick to getting Carter Page was just that eventually they knew he would talk to John Smith. John Smith would talk to Lewandowski. Lewandowski would talk to Manafort. Manafort would talk to Trump. Something, okay? And eventually they get to the campaign headquarters. And then they could listen into the conversations at the campaign headquarters, the staffers. They could look at all their emails and their text messages. They could get into their computers. They could see all the their list of donors, the speeches they were getting ready to give, who's writing what speech and whatever. And then also they can also look at like debate preparation materials. Why? Because that's what they did to Jimmy Carter in 1980. They grabbed that debate preparation material, and even if Carter, was behind in the polls at the time, the important thing is they weren't taking any chances. They wanted to make sure that, because say Carter hit a home run at that debate. Okay, if he had hit a home run at that debate, who knows? He might have pulled it off. He might have won. But they wanted to make sure he won. He wasn't going to hit a home run. And 2, Reagan was going to squash him like a bug, which Reagan did. Because Reagan had all the debate preparation materials on Carter. Carter is very much a scripted guy, and they were able to slam him. Okay, so my opinion, this whole counterintelligence espionage investigation was to do nothing more. Everybody says, well, gee, they didn't get that warrant until like October. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean they can only listen to phone calls from October forward. No, they can listen going back as many years as they want, as many years as it's stored in, and they could hear all the strategy and everything else and what they're doing. Now, this is what I think they were doing, and I think this is one reason why Barack Obama did not want Joe Biden to run for election, for president. Because potentially by Biden being in the campaign, one of his campaign people, or even in the general, the Democrats, or then even the general if he got the nomination, would start digging into Biden, would start looking at him, what he was doing. Well, Biden was the point person on this whole counterintelligence investigation from the White House. He was the one directing it and receiving communications and communicating back to the White House. Obama, the chief of staff, went through Biden. Biden then talked to the FBI, CIA, DNI. He talked to all the different agencies, State Department, everything. He was the one coordinating from the White House. He was the point man. Obama probably gave him the job because he kept his hands clean and anybody he really cared about clean. Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, all those people. Ben Rhodes, etc. So Biden was there. So now, this is my opinion as far as what was actually going on. Because again, debate gate, and then you see Stefan Halper's name down here at the bottom. Where is he? He's down here. Okay, here he is. Okay, there's Stefan Halper. This is DebateGate, 1980. Okay, he's old CIA guy, and he brought him in on this one. So anyway, so my opinion, what they were doing is using this counterintel sham to be able to spy on the campaign, spy on Trump, hear what was going on, and get their debate preparation materials, get everything. Donors, speeches, locations, strategy, whatever, talking points, you name it. So, and then pass that on to Biden, and then Biden had to pass it on to somebody in the Hillary Clinton camp, somebody he could trust, somebody that was like, say, sleazy, that wasn't going to dime anybody out, and that would be John Podesta. He was over there. Podesta's brother was involved with Manafort and Ukraine, and funny enough, Podesta's brother walks. Manafort goes to prison. Go figure. So anyway, so my opinion was just to get real-time intel on the Trump campaign to hand it off to Hillary, so that would ensure that would guarantee that Hillary would win the election. And remember, they always said, look, if we have an insurance policy, namely that, okay, if she loses by some weird chance and Trump wins, then we can use this information we're getting about the Russia collusion and the dossier and the peeing on the bed. We can then use that against him, leak it to the press after he's elected, and then just saddle his entire administration with an investigation, with who knows what, with just being hamstrung, with having to deal with this all the time. They wouldn't be able to get anything done, wouldn't be effective, so they definitely couldn't win re-election at best, and maybe an impeachment at best, maybe a 25th Amendment issue, which comes up only a few months later. So, they were thinking like, okay, this is our insurance policy. That's what Strzok meant when he said the insurance policy. We're not going to use it. We're not going to give it to the press. Now, remember now, very few people, probably two people actually, knew that they were getting real-time intel from the Obama administration, the Hillary Clinton campaign. Probably Podesta and Hillary Clinton herself, and that was probably about it. So now, mind you, now they wanted, like Glenn Simpson at Fusion GPS, he wanted this out publicly. He was hired to dig up dirt and get it out there and put it out and shop it to the press. Now, Podesta couldn't go to him and say, "Oh, don't shop that to the press because I'm using it. They're spying on the campaign for me." Well, no, you don't tell people that. I mean, you keep that. It's like him, Clinton, and maybe one other person, and I guarantee it wouldn't have been Glenn Simpson with Fusion GPS. So they're trying to market it at the same time. They're probably, well, you don't have to market it so fast because if the story became public before the election, then they might say, well, where did you get that from? Okay, and then that whole thing, they could all get busted for that. So, but now after the election, boom, totally hamstring them, everything else, unmask people, the whole 10 yards. Had a big meeting in January. Biden must have felt like he was being left out to dry because he called a meeting and he wanted, at that meeting in the Oval Office, Barack Obama, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, Clapper, Brennan, Comey, everybody. He wanted a meeting in the Oval Office. There was no doubt that President Obama was sitting there listening to it. And that was the famous meeting where Susan Rice wrote herself that email on January 20th, the day of the inauguration, about 1 hour. She was like the only person left in the White House. 1 hour before Trump actually got sworn in, she sent herself an email on her White House account before it got turned off 1 hour later, saying, "Oh, that strange meeting we held in January, the beginning, whatever date it was, this year." Detailed a really weird investigation that's probably going to get made public, and we did everything by the book. Signed, Susan Rice. She wrote it to herself. So there was a permanent record that, this is like when I found out about it, I had nothing to do with it. Leave me out of it, okay? But she was in it up to her knee, or up to her head, actually, up to her neck. So, so that just kind of gives you, in my opinion, that's what all this was about. And I think that's what Durham is fishing for. Because remember now, the FBI, they don't start their formal investigation until July. But somebody's moving the pieces around back in March of 2016, when you have Misford talking to Papadopoulos. And they didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to go get him. And another big story I covered back on June 19th was Salvini, the Italian prime minister. He fired his two top intelligence chiefs when he found out that the Italian intelligence was being used by Brennan and the CIA to spy on an opposition party's campaign in the United States. And he got on a plane and he flew, because he didn't want to talk on the phone, obviously. He got on a plane, he flew, and he met with Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo. Okay, now, coincidentally enough, guess who decided to take a trip to Italy that same week? That same week. No big visit, no announcement, no public meetings, no nothing. He's not going to do any tourism stuff. President Barack Obama flies to Italy to meet with a former prime minister. The same week that Salvini fired the two top intelligence chiefs and is flying out to meet with Pompeo and Pence. Obama knows not to get on the phone either, so he flies out to meet with the Italian prime minister at his villa. Why? So they can get their story straight. That's why. And who was the big opponent to Trump declassifying those documents about 7 months ago, maybe even longer? The British intelligence. Why? Because British intelligence were used, hired, whatever, by Brennan and Clapper to spy on Americans overseas, and that's why they didn't want it coming out. So, I mean, and then with this report, like I said earlier, the nice thing about this report, the only nice thing about this report is quote-unquote whistleblower's complaint, is that it shows you how these people think. It shows you how they put together the whole Trump-Russia collusion thing, how they got people embedded, how they started collecting information on people, and getting themselves in a position where they could do harm. Like this guy, he got in there into the White House. He got assigned to work for the NSA. That was his phony cover story. His real job was to spy on Trump, to try to pick up some intel, to try to see if Trump tripped over his feet, his shoelaces, and to be there when it happened. Okay, and they knew Durham was getting close in Ukraine. Barr's getting close, and they're trying to freeze the prosecution because now if Durham or Barr go after them, they're going to be like, oh, you're just doing this as revenge, as retaliation. And so now they feel like they're going to freeze Barr and Durham. Hopefully Durham and Barr are tough enough to say, you know what, screw you guys. We're going forward. We're trying to say over on this end, we're going forward on an investigation to find out how this whole investigation, again, before I'm sure the FBI was involved in the beginning, but before they formally opened their investigation in July, how the hell was Misford, talking to, and Downer talking to Papadopoulos before July 31? It's 2016. Okay, who set that up? Who put those people in place? Who put that operation in motion? Who started that, and why? And then the question came back is like, and then, it makes me think also when we're talking about here DebateGate. Well, remember, the Reagan campaign was afraid that Jimmy Carter was going to try some October surprise. Because remember the Iran hostage situation. They're afraid that he was going to rescue the hostages through some military force and make a big splash, and everybody was going to get behind him and probably vote to have him reelected. Like, hey, way to go, President! You went out there, you sent the military out there, we kicked some ass, we took some names. Yay, go America, go President Carter. Well, remember they tried an operation, okay, that big fiasco in the desert. And they had a great plan. In fact, they wanted to use submachine guns, but they didn't have any current ones, and they didn't want to use any foreign-made submachine guns because they didn't want anything being left on the ground. They wanted American-made, so they had to go back and grab the old stuff from World War II, the old 45 caliber submachine gun. I forget what it was called. I think they called it like a burp gun or something like that. And to use them, they trained in the desert. I think they trained out here by the test site, by where the people looking for the aliens were at. And they trained extensively, and they had sounded like they had a great plan. They had the helicopters and the C-130s in to bring people out. They were going to have big canisters of like some kind of gas and knock people out when they landed, and then go in and just bring the hostages out. And they had a whole plan for it. Well, remember, a lot of those helicopters had mechanical problems, and they had to pull back out, and like most of the force had to return back to the carrier out there in the Persian Gulf. And part of me is thinking like the CIA knew that if Carter pulled off that October surprise, that he would get reelected, and they wanted Carter out because they wanted Stanfield Turner out. They wanted to go back to business as usual. And part of me is wondering how hard would it have been for the CIA to sabotage some of these helicopters. Yeah, that's what they do. They specialize in sabotage. And you got 5,000 people on an aircraft carrier. How hard would it be to put some people on that aircraft carrier that nobody would know who they are and what they're doing there? You wouldn't know. There's 5,000 people there. It's like, oh, maybe this guy got transferred in yesterday. I don't know who he is. Oh, hey, how you doing? Whatever. Maybe those helicopters were sabotaged, okay? Maybe that was done on purpose. And maybe that's why that plan failed. I don't know. Now, Obama, for his part, he knew how to play ball with the intelligence agency. When Snowden came out, he made fun of Snowden. And remember that Clapper and the CIA, they spied on Dianne Feinstein and the Senate Intelligence Committee. They spied on their computers and their phone calls and everything else because they didn't like the questions they were being asked. And Obama didn't fire Clapper or Brennan over that. He thought it was okay for them to spy on the senators. So he knew how to play ball. Okay, Trump doesn't. And this one. I'll play this one audio tape here real quick. This kind of brings it back home again. Let's see. Okay, we're going to play. This is Chuck Schumer talking to Rachel Maddow on MSNBC back in January of 2017, right before Trump got inaugurated, and they were supposed to be getting briefings on Russian hacking and stuff like that. And this is what Chuck Schumer's big warning to then President-elect Trump about the intelligence agency. Here you go.
I don't know if you have seen this. I don't want to blindside you with this. This is the latest statement, latest tweet, as you were just saying, the president-elect's latest unsolicited pronouncement on the intelligence community. This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you...
I mean, there you go. That's pretty crazy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's like, whoa. I mean, that's, yeah, he kind of just laid it out there for him saying, hey, you know, not a good idea. Not a good idea to do that. So, let's see here. Well, so anyway, it's 11:45. Been on for an hour and 45 minutes, and so I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat room tonight, and I want to thank everybody who's been watching us. I want to thank all the great chats that I was able to put up on screen. Some really good conversations going on there in the chat room tonight. And let's see, I see Solex is still with us down there. I see, let's see, who else? Who else do we have up there? Who else is staying up late tonight? Let's see. Who do we got? I see Solex. Yeah, and I apologize, guys. I didn't give a lot of notice on this. I apologize for that. I think maybe I gave like 45 minutes notice that I was going on live. So apologize if you guys didn't get the notifications early and stuff like that. And I want to thank the Zombie and great Dirtbag as well as Crazy Trick Sheena and Vincent. Thanks for coming by. And let's see who else here. I saw some other people. Let's see. What's her name? Skywatcher Sandra. I want to thank you for coming by. So, hey guys, thanks for coming by tonight again. I apologize, I didn't give a lot of notice tonight, and but thanks for everybody for watching. And for Carl's opinion, this is Carl. Have a great night, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Take care, guys. Bye bye.